5 billion in damage. 5 billion. Freshwater flooding. Plan before the storm. Survive. Hurricane Preparedness Week, early May. NOAA and National Weather Service info. Prepare early. Use resources. Rehearse plans with your family. Why is rehearsing bold? Because it's important. Rehearse. Actually walk through the plans. They change. So does your family every year. This year, maybe you have somebody staying with you, or maybe somebody's physical condition has changed where it slows you down. We have somebody who's mobility challenged, or we have somebody who's experienced a medical event which slows things down a little bit. Walk through the plan. When you walk through the plan that you took days to write down, you are going to find single point failures. You absolutely will. Walk through the plan. As you're walking out the door and you say, oh, what about Fluffy? Well, Fluffy needs medication. Well, did you plan for your animal's medication? Did you plan for your animal's boarding? Do you have different types of animals perhaps live in the north end? Maybe there's horses, maybe there's cows, maybe there's pigs that you have to think about differently. So walk through those plans. When you walk through them, you will find your single point failures. Ready.gov, hurricanes, FEMA, hurricane disaster prep and timelines. Look for those resources. You will find pre-made lists that work very, very well, and then you can modify them for your own needs. Know your evacuation routes. Go to the myokaloosa.com county website. Look for the department, public safety sections, emergency management. Chief Prince is here today, my emergency management chief. He is a fantastic resource, and he will talk to you a little bit about that today. Know your shelter locations, your special needs registry links are there, your emergency planning info kit for Alert Okaloosa. Hide from the wind, run from the water. Do not attempt to cross fast-moving water. Anybody know why? May not be a road under it. Anybody seen concrete get washed out? Oh, it's ugly. It's ugly, and there's nothing under it. You will end up nose down with just the trunk sticking out. It's happened before. It's happened here. Obey evacuation orders. We do not issue evacuation orders likely here in Okaloosa County. As a matter of fact, since I've been here, since 2019 in this county, we have not issued mandatory evacuation orders for a tropical impact. The only mandatory evacuation orders that we issued were for an unexploded ordnance that we had to remove from the bay. So for Sally, there's a certain guy sitting in the back of the room who called me at 2 o'clock in the morning to wake me up when Sally changed course, because we were not expecting hurricane conditions here in Okaloosa County. We were expecting weak tropical storm force conditions. And then Jason called me and said, hey man, are you up? And I'm like, no, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm here at the EOC. And he said, get up. That's not what he says, get up, it's not good. Yeah, what's going on? That storm just made a hard right turn. You're going to get a hurricane. No, I'm not. I just told my county administrator I'm not getting a hurricane. Yeah, you're getting a hurricane. Okay, fair enough. Well, we didn't issue evacuation orders, and this thing's knocking on our door already. So at that point, you're in. I'm not going to issue evacuation orders at 2 o'clock in the morning, and you wake up, and then your insurance says, well, you were under evacuation orders, and I'm not paying. Well, I can't do that to you. So we were in it. We were all in it together, and we all took a bite of that sandwich. It just happens. Wind. Wow. Look at that. I love the bottom left there with the stop sign. That's what happens when you go live in the hurricane. Yep, wind is crazy, but water is the real killer. So tropical depressions, there's where your metrics are. And those haven't changed in a while. There's some on the right side. I'm not going to go through them all, but if you look at what happens in different miles per hour, and some of this has to do with what our severe thunderstorm metrics are, right? So you get winds up to 58 miles an hour. When it gets over 58 miles an hour, we start to see heavy damage to roofs, trees, things like that. So when you look at the 55 to 63 miles an hour, small trees uprooted, moderate damage occurs to mobile homes, RVs, brick and wood frame houses receive minor structural damage. We get stuff like that in severe thunderstorms all the time. Had it last night. When you get to the 64 to 73 mile an hour, the violent storms, moderate sized trees uprooted, and then of course you get to 74 miles an hour and over with hurricanes. You get mobile homes overturned, large trees and branches down, moderate roof damage. So we put out those expected local impacts when we start putting out our messaging. Pay attention to that messaging, because I will also add things into our messaging because of our specific topography, our relationship to the military properties, and different things that we know about the local area where we'll have different low-lying areas that we know will flood. That's the magic in having your EMs involved in some of that messaging, because we know the area. You know, they can put stuff out with expected local impact saying you'll have river flooding or you'll have road flooding, but if we know where the construction hazards are, we know where the low-lying roads are, we can put that in and kind of bake it in to make it more manageable for you. Wind, the obvious danger from damage to structures and roofs. Wind speed is dangerous. Your garage door is vulnerable, and a breach there could collapse your roof. So how many people know that there are actually hurricane braces for your garage door? Yeah, there are. And if you don't know about it, I really encourage you to look them up because your garage door is vulnerable. And if that point fails, your roof is probably going to come off unless you've got really good hurricane pipes. And even then, your interior walls can fail. So make sure you look at that. Make sure you look at your garage door where that failure point is. Falling objects, trees, architecture, superstructure, doing tree mitigation around your property pre-hurricane season is a good thing. You don't want a large branch coming down on that roof. You can have all your windows protected. A large branch does your roof. It's a tough sell. Debris blown around in the wind, high speeds. There's lots of good window products out there now. Aside from having to buy very expensive aluminum hurricane shutters, you have things like ply locks where you can use wood and stick those ply locks in there to cover your windows without having to drill into your structure itself. So there are really good options out there now compared to what there used to be. Down power lines can energize objects together. Don't touch. If you see a power line on the ground, avoid it at all costs. And do not step in a puddle that a power line is going down into. You will be unhappily surprised. And they can be energized at any given time. Oftentimes, the power companies will go ahead and de-energize different areas based on damage reports that they have coming in. They're not going to notify you before that power gets turned on. So you don't want to be the one holding that power line or stepping in that puddle when the energy comes back into that. Report it, stay away from it. Don't be sung to sleep by the eye of a storm. This is very important. Don't venture outside. Has anybody actually been in the eye of a hurricane? It's unbelievable. It's surreal. So we have everything blowing one direction, and then all of a sudden, poof, it's like it is in this room. It's calm. You go outside, and sometimes it's even sunny. And of course, the wind has been blowing the branches and the trees all in one direction. And then when the storm passes and the wind comes from the other direction, everything that was damaged before comes down. So it's kind of like wiggling a tooth. Sooner or later, it's going to get loose, it's going to come out. That happens with the branches, it happens with trees. You don't want to be outside when that happens. So don't get sung to sleep by the eye of the hurricane. Yes, it's cool to take a picture out of your window, or if you have one of the clear hurricane panels, don't go outside and play during that time. It's very dangerous. Mexico Beach, Hurricane Michael, perspective. Before and after. Look at that. Before. After. In 2019, when I came down, I was coming down I-10 and I'm getting closer to Okaloosa County. I'm getting by the Mexico Beach area, and the trees are all blown in one direction on I-10, and then you get a little bit further and they're all blown the other direction because of where the eye came through. Absolutely unbelievable, and those trees are still like that to this day, the ones that they didn't take down. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable, I agree. And for those who were there and lived through it, my goodness. Earlier I asked what the greatest killer in current hurricanes is. The greatest killer in future hurricanes, like I said before, is past hurricanes. And what that means is I stayed through this Cat 2, there's no way I'm leaving for a Cat 1. Right? I lived through a Cat 3, I stayed here, and this is a Cat 1, I'm not leaving. But if the Cat 1 has an eye wall that is 2 counties wide or 3 counties wide, and it's going to push a 24-foot storm surge on you, don't get hung up on the category of that storm. Listen to the expected local impacts. It's one of the biggest things I'm going to preach to you today. Expected local impacts are what you need to listen to. If it's a 24-foot storm surge, it doesn't matter what the label of the storm is. It's unsurvivable at the coast. You cannot be there. So sometimes the governing bodies will be hesitant to issue a mandatory evacuation order because at the end of the day, nobody's going to come and pluck you out of the house at gunpoint and say, you must leave. But if I tell you to leave, trust me, you want to leave. I'm going to tell you, look, you need to evacuate. I'm going to get on TV, I'm going to get on social media, and I'm going to tell you, leave. I'm going to give you the same advice I would give my family. Leave. And if I tell you to leave, please do so. Over 930 square miles of land in Okaloosa County with 152 miles of water and barrier beaches. Municipalities include Crestview, the county seat, that's in Fort Walton Beach, Laurel Hill, and all the other great bodies there. More than 215,000 plus or minus residents with an additional 50,000 tourists at any given time. So what that means for us on evacuation timing is something pretty unique. We know that we can evacuate the county complete in about 48 hours solid. But we would do that by issuing evacuation orders to tourists first. So we would say, okay, we know we're going to be impacted to some degree. We'd hit the hoteliers and say, empty them. They got to go. And of course, I would have to, yes?
We talked about evacuating this county in 2 days. You weren't here for Opal. Okay, well, Opal was like a Cat 3. When we went to bed, we wake up to Cat 5. And the Daily News had that picture of Beale Parkway at Cat 3, gridlock, same with 85, all the way through Crestview. We are gridlocked for evacuation routes. And I'd like that. I don't know if you can do that in 48 hours.
Sure. So you can when you get the tourists out of there first. So when we phase it like that, it actually takes about a third of your problem out of the way. What we have now, what compounds us, is we have construction in different areas of the county that's going to slow that down. So the other half of that statement is, we know we can evacuate in 48 hours. Is that actually going to happen? Probably not. And the way we figure that out is we do the volume of traffic. It's not just a guess. We do the volume of the traffic based on how many vehicles we have in the county, the road capacities, and we put it into the model, and the model spits it out. So what do? We add another day onto that, another solid day. So you may have as far as 72 hours out an evacuation order come. And a 72-hour evacuation order is a big guess, because in 72 hours, that storm can shift 60 miles. But if I think we're going to get hit, if Jason's telling me, hey man, our confidence is pretty good that within this range we're going to have significant local impacts, I'm good with that. Because I don't want you there at the top of that house floating down the street. I'm going to tell you, all right, we got to go. And if we evacuate when we didn't have to, much better than not evacuating when you had to. Right? We're going to make the best decision we can make. It's not always going to be 100% accurate, but it's always going to be with the best intentions. I can promise you that much. Like I was saying, we know we can get everybody out in 48 hours. Just on the math, is that going to happen? No, we're going to add another day onto it. It's where you're going to line up. We're going to phase it out with the tourists first. Multiple military installations. Eglin, Dukefield, Herbert, we actually work very well with them. And they are on all the same calls we are. We work with our hurricane exercises with them. We work with their 96th Test Wing. We work with their EMS group. Fantastic folks. We all go through the same planning, and we work with them as far as their evacuations and their military installation and security as well. When the county is under threat, public safety evaluates the threat and informs the county administrator. The emergency operations center is activated to level 2. So the emergency operations center is never at an unactivated level. Level 3 is normal daily operations. We're at level 3 right now. Even though last night we had severe weather coming through. We were still at level 3, but you were still getting emails from me last night, if you were on that email distribution list. If not, it's going to the PIO, and the PIO is putting it out on social media. Level 2 is when we're at enhanced activation, so just command staff. So command staff is taking a look at everything, and we're saying, okay, we're under threat, we're going to let the county administrator know, and that starts our timeline as to whether or not we're going to have conversations with the chairman regarding whether or not we're going to have a declaration of emergency. Recommendation to the board on a declaration of local state of emergency. What type of things would I be looking at in order to declare a state of emergency? Expected local impacts, significant impact to superstructure, infrastructure, power loss as far as our roadways are concerned, our lights, significant flooding in major areas of ingress and egress, construction project, all kinds of things like that. That's what we're looking for. Are we going to have to close county offices? Are we going to have to close critical functions? If a declaration of emergency is made, the EOC is activated to level 1, and all of our outstanding community partners, all of our fire departments, our military, our water and sewer, our gas companies, you name it, it's coming in. Members of the military. Goodness, we have 21 different emergency support functions that we staff in the EOC. And that'll be about 150 bodies in there. We have media contingents. Daniel and his crew sometimes come on in there. And we have other folks that will show up, and we will have a media presence right there so that no matter what, we can get information out to you right there from the EOC. Our comprehensive emergency management plan is enacted. It's a document greater than 2,500 pages. with all its different annexes. It is that yay thick, and we have to know it inside and out, but it's got a contingency for everything. It is an all hazards plan. So things like snowstorms. Are we going to have a snowstorm in Okaloosa County? Wow. Wow, we were joking about that before, right? I mean, how many years before we had 9 inches of snow or 10 inches of snow? Did we plan for it? We did pretty good, actually. We did really, really well. In 3 days, we were back up and running. Outstanding. Meteor strikes, train derailment, unexploded ordnance. We got plans for it all. County website becomes a critical information portal. Nick and his team will actually turn the county landing page into a damage reporting area, which we've done more than once so far. When we had the tornadoes come through, you can go ahead and get on there, click on there, and report your own damage right there. And when we go through our damage assessment information and our damage assessment process, we get people out to you. The EOC operates in the National Incident Management Incident Command System Protocol under the direction of the incident commander, who is me, with reporting responsibilities to the BCC. Our continuity of operations plan is reviewed. So we have a continuity of operations plan in case we have to downscale, upscale, change the size of our government, change the footprint of our operations, no matter what. We even have a secondary emergency operations center in case part of ours fails. If we get hit by a Cat 4 at our EOC, it's a Cat 5 rated building, but I doubt we walk away unscathed. If we lose part of our power, we lose our air conditioning system, we lose our infrastructure in some way, we can always bug out to our secondary EOC to keep you updated and keep serving you. So no matter what, we have a continuity of operations plan. We can keep our government running. We can, thanks to COVID, the one good thing that came out of COVID is we can operate remotely on a greater stage than we ever have before. Our wireless capabilities, our ability to operate from remote locations and change our footprint, that really forced us to do that, and we've been able to integrate those models. There's our EOC. The chairman wasn't kidding. We spent, Brian isn't in the room, but I think it was $650,000 of voter-approved surtax money to bring this up to speed. We had basic RGB capability when this was first built. iPhone 1 had been released with the tech that went into that building originally. So we were able to bring it up to the absolute latest and greatest platforms. Better cameras, better screens, better TVs, better breakout rooms, the way that these systems integrate with each other, the way they talk to the state, the way they talk to the federal government. All enhanced, absolutely unbelievable, fantastic place. 21 emergency support functions, everything you can think of to keep the county running, and the staff to include it. So our fire departments show up, our police departments, our sheriff's office, our volunteers, you name it, we're all in one place so we can all work together. We have laundry facilities, kitchen facilities, feeding contracts, everything that it takes to keep the county running. At Niceville, on the college campus, the Emergency Operations Center, Northwest Florida State College. Don't come knock on my door, I'm not letting you in. Evacuation routes, obey your evacuation orders. You know the evacuation routes if you've been here for any length of time. If not, go on the county website, you'll see it. It's a major ingress and egress areas of the county. You will note that the Brooks Bridge is under construction. However, we know that's going to be a slowdown, but it's not going to be a ground fault. So you will be able to get through there. The one word that the sheriff's office really hates when we talk about evacuation is contraflow. Contraflow. Whether or not contraflow actually happens, which means we make all of the lanes except for one going northbound to get out of the county, that is a conversation with the sheriff. That is a needs-based, we're under threat and we got to get out of here in 24 hours conversation. If we can plan better to not let that happen, that's what we're going to do. If we have to do it as an absolute emergency, we can talk about it, but these days, it's rare. Plan to evacuate early. Don't plan on an evacuation timeline based on the forecast cone of concern. It's addressed, that only addresses the center of the storm. Listen to us, we're going to tell you, bake in your own individual needs. If you know you're going to be slower because you have mobility challenges or other challenges or animal challenges, plan early, plan often, change your plans as they're needed. In the hours immediately preceding the tropical storm force wind arrival, the county may collaborate with the SO to lift the tolls on certain bridges. That type of stuff will be communicated to you if and when it happens. We will get it out there on the county webpage, and it'll get out there on, from the news agencies as well. Hurricane shelters will be open on a timeline determined by the estimated arrival of tropical conditions, and that's when we want our evacuations to be done as well, before the arrival of tropical storm force winds. We do not want you driving around out there in tropical storm force winds. If you get stuck in gridlock and get stuck on 85 and the hurricane hits, it is absolutely no fun to be in that vehicle during that time, I will tell you that much. We try to pace that out the best we can. There's a number of spaces for the main shelters that we open. We actually have plenty more spaces than people who have actually ever evacuated in the county. They did what they call the SRESP, the Statewide Regional Evacuation Services Plan, and they use cell phone data to find out what people's behavior is during evacuations, during storms, during notifications, and it tells us basically where people go and what people do during certain times when they're under threat, when they're under evacuation orders. And that way we can estimate how many people we're actually going to need in our shelters, how many spaces we're actually going to need. We plan based off of that. And we actually, every year, go through an evaluation with FDEM, the Florida Department of Emergency Management, the division, to make sure that we have enough of those spaces available for our people. Shelters are a refuge of last resort. Shelters are not fun. Shelters don't smell good. Shelters aren't comfortable. You're not going to eat well there. If you have someplace else to go, choose it. If you have to go to a shelter, I completely understand, and do so. But if you don't have to, if you have someplace else, if you have family, a state away, evacuate tens of miles, not hundreds of miles. You don't have to be out of all of the rain, you have to be out of the worst of it. That's what we tell people, that's what FDEM tells people. But shelters are a last resort. They're not fun, they smell bad, they're loud. If you have to be there, we get it. If you can be somewhere else, be there. Those are the basic evacuation routes.
Sorry, before you go on, special needs shelters, it said, families need to plan.
Yes.
I know quite a few older older adults that do not have family in the area. Is there a contingency for them?
Absolutely. So on the county webpage and through FDOH, there's a link on there that they can go ahead and click on and give them all the information that they want. We can even get them transportation to and from the shelter through the EDC Ride program. So there's
Well, if they're on oxygen and they don't, or
through the Florida Department of Health. So that link will take them to where they need to be based on their specific needs. You bet. They've actually baked in a tremendous, robust program for them, and FDOH is fantastic with helping them with it. Yes, ma'am. Good question. The senior living facilities have their own plans that are evaluated annually through the Emergency Management Department. They actually have to bring them to us, and one of our folks has to go through that plan with them line by line. Some questions. You beat me to the question page.
Is this stuff in this book? What you're showing?
All of this stuff? No. No, the hurricane guide is basically a summary of what we have going on here today. This presentation is not in there, but if you go on the county webpage for emergency management, a lot of that information is on there. Yes, sir.
The escape routes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
You bet. You bet. Sir?
You know, the bases are gonna probably typically flush the aircraft.
Oh, you bet.
So my question is, we've got 50,000 tourists that many would arrive via BDS or Odessa. Do you coordinate with those organizations to try and, say, hey, we need seats going out, we don't need seats coming in?
Oh, absolutely. And one of the great things about having our own airports is Tracy Stage, the airport's director, is on all of those calls with me. So he hits the airlines, I hit the tourism part through Jennifer Adams. We make sure that not only do we get the tourists out of there first, but we make sure that the hotels are canceling any reservations that are coming in now. Yep. Sir?
Not sure if this is your bailiwick, but
I have lots of bailiwicks.
within the community, and I know this is not subdivisions, I don't know if and when the drains have ever been, cleaned. You know, they had to come out and fix one next to my neighbor. And I make a comment, if you guys come around, we only have like one vehicle, that could somewhat, if the county was preparing and going out and cleaning these things out, it would help on the water flow when we get this tremendous amount of rain.
Is that a homeowners association?
No.
No, okay. So today up on our panel, I think Mike Hackett from Water and Sewer is here. That is a fantastic question for Mr. Hackett. I would recommend that you pick his brain on that and on what that schedule is and how they work those specific problems. It's an excellent question, and the man himself will be here. I suggest you
Hey,
pepper
we're
him.
bringing this up because irrigation runoff has been a big concern of mine too. So
Sure, the runoff is definitely an issue, you bet. But yeah, Mike is the guy, great person to talk to on an excellent question. In the back, sir.
You provide sandbags or any type of protective devices?
Anytime we have a tropical impact, even the ones that we're not gonna declare an emergency for, we open sandbag stations north and south. So we have the bags out there, we have the shovels, we have the sand. We ask that you do bring your own shovel if you can, because every now and then somebody likes our shovels and they go away, and it's really hard to fill those with your hand. But, yes, sir, we are.
Do you help the disabled put together sandbags or anything like that?
I don't believe, Nick, that we have folks that are out there shoveling. I think we just have the bags that are out there and the shovels themselves.
Yeah, the
But if there is a need, if somebody were to let us know, I'm sure we can accommodate that.
I have a question. What was the site that you go to for people with disabilities?
If you go to the livevolution.com and you go through the public safety emergency management, there'll be a link there to the special needs registry.
And I know they asked, my next question is for senior citizens with pets.
Yes,
And you said pretty easy, they can take transportation. What do they do with their pets?
that would be, part of that is they have to take some of the responsibility for themselves when they engage in boarding. Through, the pause isn't gonna take everybody's pet. If you show up to a shelter, and you have a pet that's there, pause is gonna take that pet and board it for that amount of time. But if you, know that something's gonna happen, if we know 3 days in advance, it's gonna be on the individual resident to make boarding arrangements for their pet through any local boarder.
Because like both of my parents have dementia and she has her pet with her all the time. That's why I was asking.
I hate to say this, but sometimes it's incumbent upon the family members to help with those. Yes, ma'am?
At the beginning, you said you were on your email list.
So that is, it's a little bit of a misnomer. My email list is for our strategic partners, not for the general public. But the information that we put on that, trust me, you don't want the amount of emails that I send.
sounds like it.
Yeah, it's literally, sometimes on a severe weather event, you may get up to 40 for one severe weather event, because I'm tracking each individual storm cell, the wind, where it's going. I get made fun of a lot, but hey, listen, I am here to help. But Nick, our PIO, and the PIO team will take that information that I get and put it out on social media. You may not get the 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning ones, but everything else that I put out will be on the county webpage, right, Nick? Yes, ma'am. Sir?
If you can talk to him about the Facebook page, he pushes out through there, and then we share, everybody shares that information.
That's correct, and what the major said is 100% correct. Because we have such a great relationship with our partners, when we put the information out there, the sheriff's office will take that up and push it. Everything that comes from the county's information gets shared. So there's very, very little opportunity if you're looking for the information for you to miss it. It will be out there ad nauseum. So make sure you are a member of the county's Facebook page as well, the sheriff's office Facebook page, because they'll put stuff out there that we don't. If it's law enforcement sensitive stuff out there, you may not necessarily get that from us. That traffic may be impacted because of a barricaded subject somewhere. That may be something that comes from their page, but just as impactful to your daily routine. Sir?
I have a great deal of difficulty with Facebook, considering many others, so is there somewhere else we can go with something?
Pat, do you mind if I?
Nick is going to take that for you.
Yeah, so for folks like you, not everybody's on Facebook. That is our most popular way to get that messaging. So I'm the county's public information officer. Most of the municipalities like Crestview, City of Fort Walton, Niceville have PIOs as well. And just as he was saying, they all share it. So they'll share it, but in addition to the Facebook, I'll put it up almost the exact same thing on the county's website. So when he activates the EOC, I'm blasting that information in 3 places: the county website, social media, and to the news media. And so you'll see it in those places.
Do we have a local channel when an emergency happens?
Our local channel, I'm a big fan of WEAR TV. They're our folks, and right after this, or sometime today, we do have a message from the chief meteorologist, Alan Strum, that I'll play for you guys, just kind of remind you. I think you guys know his face in the morning, it's Brooke Richardson. But yeah, Channel 3 does a fantastic job. So.
What about text alerts?
So the text alerts are part of the WIA, which is the information that gets broadcast when there's an immediate emergency. We can put it out through our WebEOC activation, but we save those for specific types of alerts and emergencies. So if we're going to declare a local state of emergency, if we have tornadoes that are going to come through, when things meet certain metrics, we'll bug you with a text message. But if not, what happens is we get a flood of people calling in saying, get me off of this. Because I don't want to hear that Fluffy cross the road and cause a traffic crash on a text alert. So we save it for very specific higher level range, and we activate that individually.
And be aware, if you live in Crestview and you're getting a text that says tornado warning, doop, doop, bloop, 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 and, but somebody down, if you have a friend down in Fort Walton Beach, they may not get that. So some people give me a call and be like, hey, I didn't get the text message for the tornado warnings because you weren't under one. You live in Fort Walton. Crestview was under the tornado. So just be aware of that. They know where you live if you sign up for them.
We know where you live. Sir? So Nixle, actually, if you want to hit the Nixle, because it's more sheriff's office related, I'm going to let the major talk about Nixle, which is an absolute fantastic utility to be signed up for and to get alerts that way. And it also gets, a lot of the things that come out from us will get rebroadcast on Nixle, and vice versa. So the major will probably talk about that since it's their product. Other questions, sir? We do use volunteers, particularly with our CERT program. They do search and rescue, they do USAR. If you have any ham radio knowledge capability, Captain John Johnson is in the back right over here, and he runs our ARES program, which is an amazing backup for not only for Tallahassee, but for us as far as our shortwave radio capabilities. And the man is an unbelievable resource, and he's back there in the red shirt in case you want to do something like that. Thank you. Other questions, comments, concerns? I've taken up a lot of your time, I appreciate. Sir?
Just a quick clarification, y'all essentially have contingency for contingency for contingencies.
Correct, correct. Semper Gumby, always flexible, that's our law. Other questions? Thank you so much for listening to me drone on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Pat. Appreciate that. Next up, we have the man. Pat gets a lot of information, and that information gets distributed out to you guys. Where does he get that information from? So our next guest is going to talk to you guys about that. Jason Beeman is a meteorologist in charge for the National Weather Service in Mobile. Began his career in 2003 while attending college, and after years of experience, he was promoted to the head dude in charge. That's my terminology. Head meteorologist in charge. He directs the National Weather Service's Mobile's meteorological, hydrological warning forecast and service programs, as well as oversees the area-wide weather preparedness and coordination program, ensuring the responsiveness and technical soundness of the warning and forecast programs and products. Let me get your presentation up, and let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Jason Beeman. Let me get that up for you, Jason.
Good morning, everybody. It's good to be with you this morning. All good, we good? Okay, sure. So yeah, just a little bit about me while the presentation's loading up. I was born and raised here on the coast of South Baldwin County over in Alabama. So all my life I've experienced hurricanes, and that's what sparked my interest in meteorology. And so gone through a lot of hurricanes, both as a kid and then as a professional meteorologist. And it's hard to believe that I've been doing this almost 22 years now. I don't feel old enough, but the grays and the thinning hair tell me every morning, yeah, you're old enough to do this. But it's an honor and a pleasure to be able to come out and speak with you. Some of the information I'll share will be similar to Pat's. There are common themes that are very important. But I hope you can learn a little bit about the National Weather Service. How many people have heard of the National Weather Service? Okay, good. A lot of times when I tell people that I work for the National Weather Service, the first question I get is, what station are you on? Not on a station. This is a face for radio, first and foremost. And secondly, we're behind the scenes, doing that work in support of the on-air broadcast meteorologists. It's all a team effort. So when you see a message from Alan, Alan Schrum, I worked with Alan for years and years and years. 15 years now I've worked with him, close to. And with all the other broadcast meteorologists. And so it's a team effort between the National Weather Service, broadcast media, and local emergency management. I've known Pat and worked with Pat for many years as well. And so that's what it's all about. So as we get started, talk about hurricanes, Pat had a great presentation with a lot of great information to set the stage. I get a lot of questions each and every year about what's the forecast for this year? What's the outlook for hurricane season? And that's a great discussion point. It helps us think about hurricane season. But hurricane seasonal outlooks don't give you a lot of information about what could come locally. An outlook that you're going to hear on TV, for the hurricane season is talking about a very vast area of the Gulf, the Caribbean, the entire Atlantic. Doesn't say anything about local impact. And really, it's just numbers, right? What matters is one of those storms going to come here, right? And we can't answer that in an outlook. And so our mantra is the same every year. All it takes is one storm to be a bad season for us. So if you hear that the forecast is near or below normal, please don't let your guard down. Don't take that as, well, I can take this year off. Because history provides the greatest example, right? Lessons learned from history. And some of our most impactful storms in our country's history have been during the low normal years. Hurricane Andrew, we all remember Hurricane Andrew, 1992, devastating Category 5 hurricane in South Florida, also made landfall in Louisiana. One of the quietest hurricane seasons on record. Hardly anything else formed that year, but Andrew formed, and Andrew was devastating. So a below normal season really didn't matter for a whole lot of people. Locally, an example that I grew up with, especially over the Alabama coast, was Hurricane Danny in 1997. It's the only storm to form in the Gulf of Mexico that year. But I decided to vacation in Mobile Bay for a few days and drop 30 inches of rain and produce a lot of devastating impacts. So again, the numbers didn't matter there either. And we'll take a look at that. Here's the map of the 1997 hurricane season. This is the year Danny formed. You can see there in the Gulf, it was the only thing. Hardly any storms formed at all. I believe there was seven or eight total storms in the entire Atlantic that season. So a quiet season for most people, but a big local impact. On the flip side, 2020. I don't want to remember 2020 for a lot of reasons. The hurricane season being a big one as well. That was bad in a lot of areas. So we had a well above normal historical season numbers-wise, but also a tremendous amount of landfalls and major impacts. So we look at the Gulf, it's completely covered in tracks. We had, of course, Sally locally. We had Hurricane Laura, a devastating Category 4, almost Category 5 hurricane in Louisiana. And then another Category 2 hurricane, Delta, made landfall almost in the exact same area a few months later. We had Hurricane Zeta that produced major inland wind impacts across Mississippi, Alabama. So again, major season, 30 storms, and a lot of people were impacted. Then you have a season like 2010. This was an above normal season. 19 named storms, well above normal. But if you're anywhere really in the Gulf of Mexico, probably the Gulf of America, I'm going to do that a lot today. 44 years on this earth, it's hardwired in. But look at the Gulf, especially the United States coast. Hardly any impacts. No impacts, no significant impacts from any storm. So for us, you would say active season, above normal season, that doesn't make any sense because it doesn't talk about local impacts. It's just numbers. If you're down in the Caribbean or Mexico, it was a bad year. So it's all about local perspective. So just keep that in mind when we talk about these seasonal forecasts that are going to come out. NOAA's outlook will come out in late May. The Colorado State forecast is already out. They've been doing this for years, highly respected. They're calling for a somewhat above normal season, nothing like we've seen in the past few years, but a slightly above normal season. But what does that mean locally? If I can tell you that, I'd be making a lot more money, that's for sure. Another big thing is that we don't always have a lot of time to prepare for these storms. You know, I know growing up, you know, it's kind of, you watch the storms, you know, the waves come off Africa, you track them for days, and you see it, you think you see them coming all the time. They don't always follow that path, giving you 7, 8, 9 days to kind of watch it evolve across the Atlantic. Sometimes they form close to home, and they can do so rather rapidly. So if we look at the 4 Category 5 hurricanes, the strongest hurricanes that have ever made landfall in the United States, Labor Day 1935, Camille of 69, Andrew, and then Michael from a few years ago. Where were these hurricanes 5 days before landfall? 3 didn't exist yet. Andrew was a fledgling tropical storm that was almost sheared to bits and almost didn't survive. 40-mile-an-hour tropical storm, 5 days out, the other 3 did not exist. Think about that. But what about 3 days before landfall? Certainly they were all big, major storms by that point. Not a one of them, all tropical storms. 3 days, 72 hours before making landfall as the strongest hurricanes to ever make landfall in the United States. So rapid intensification, you hear it a lot. You're talking about it a lot here, storms rapidly intensifying. It's a real thing, a real concern that we have. That's why we always tell people to factor in a safety margin when you're planning for a storm. Where do we struggle the most as meteorologists? The intensity forecast. Straight up honest. We're getting really good on the track. We've gotten much better at the track forecast of the storms. The intensity is still a struggle. There's a lot of things that happen internally within a hurricane that are a struggle to model, a struggle to measure and sample in enough time to be able to give us a better idea. So we've gotten better, but it's been a slower progression over the years. So that's why we always tell people to at least plan for a category higher when we're talking about the winds especially. Give yourself a buffer. And we often recommend that ourselves, and we'll tell you when we're certain or not so certain about the intensity forecast. Hurricane Michael is a great example of all that I just said about short amount of response time, rapid intensification. Now we have the forecast for Michael worked for to intensify into a major hurricane. But none of the guidance that we had showed it intensifying to a Category 5 hurricane. So again, hope nobody in this room is waiting for the forecast of a Category 5 to take it seriously. Certainly the word of a major hurricane should trigger that. When we talk about a major hurricane, we're talking about Category 3 or higher. But look at Michael. Made landfall with winds of 160 miles an hour. It was a tropical storm 3 days before landfall, like we showed. And it intensified from a Category 1 to a Category 5 in the last 48 hours of landfall. The nightmare scenario for us all in an information planning standpoint, right? Look at the pressure. Dropped 58 millibars in 48 hours and 42 millibars in 12 hours. Just a rapid rate of intensification. And when Pat talks about not comparing storms, I think one thing that maybe some didn't take this as seriously ahead of time was Hurricane Opal from back in 1995, as the gentleman mentioned earlier. I remember Opal as well. I went to bed as a young kid, fascinated with weather. It was a Category 1 hurricane, and I woke up and it was nearly a Category 5 hurricane. And I recall vividly the panic that set in for a lot of people. I mean, it was real, it was tangible. It was, oh my goodness, what's coming? But Opal then did weaken some before landfall. Now, it still produced a major devastating storm surge, Hurricane Opal did, here locally. But it did weaken, and that got in a lot of people's minds. The storms back in the 80s, 90s, especially late in the season, they would come up into the Gulf, and by the time they get up into the northern Gulf, they tend to weaken. And so I think a lot of mindsets were, well, storms typically weaken this time of year when they get up into our part of the Gulf, and I think some people let their guard down. Well, Michael did just the opposite. We've had lots of examples here over the past few years of late season storms rapidly intensifying and not weakening at landfall. So a couple of things to note when we're talking about tropical forecasts, the forecast information that's generated. I'm sure you all are very familiar with the National Hurricane Center. That is part of the National Weather Service. And what the National Hurricane Center is doing, they're taking a look at that big picture, providing the forecast for the track, for the intensity of the storm, producing that forecast cone that we're all familiar with. That's their focus, and more of a national and state level focus. We take that information locally as the local National Weather Service, and we break that down into what does it mean for us. What are the expected local impacts of this storm for us? The National Hurricane Center can't get focused in on Okaloosa County, but we can. And that's what we do at the National Weather Service. So we take that information and really break it down into those expected local impacts that Pat talked about. We coordinate the watches and warnings with the National Hurricane Center. If there's a storm coming every 6 hours, we are on a video conference with the National Hurricane Center, going through all the warning coordination, making sure we're all on the same page for that. And a little bit about our office, the local National Weather Service in Mobile. We're out the Mobile Regional Airport in West Mobile. There's a picture of our office with the white ball there you see is our Doppler radar. So if you look on your phone, see where the rain is, where the thunderstorms are, it's coming from one of those radars. It's either coming from the Mobile radar. There's one very like it on Eglin Air Force Base over on the Walton County side. That gives you a really good picture into Okaloosa County. But there on the right, you can see our area of responsibility, which includes Okaloosa County. We're one of 122 offices, National Weather Service local forecast offices across the country. Why do you think there's so many of us, so many offices? Anybody got an idea?
Because it's very important.
Does the radar only cover a certain area?
That's part of it. It's more about local relationships and knowledge, right? We can focus, our team of meteorologists at the Weather Service in Mobile, all we have to focus on is the 20 counties that we're responsible for. That means we can build relationships first and foremost. Weather Service works very closely with local emergency management, local safety officials to give them the information they need to make the best decisions for your communities. So, because I'm local and I've worked here for years, I know Pat. Pat knows me. Pat told you I called him at 2 a.m. That wasn't an introductory phone call. Hey, I'm Jason Dean from the National Weather Service. We got a major situation on hand. No, I've known Pat for years at that point. Hey, Pat, we got a problem. And he knows me, I know him. There's a level of trust there. So when we're providing briefings and information, we're not building relationships. They're not wondering who's on the other side of the phone, right? There's that trust, there's that partnership involved. That is, the trust factor is the critical linchpin in the whole process. And that's what we can focus on being a local office. And we take great pride in that. What I always tell people is, we're part of the local community. Our friends, our family are here. We're invested in getting good information out to people. We don't want to scare you. We don't want to cause anxiety. Our goal is the exact opposite of that. Give you good information so you can make good decisions for you and your family. We work around the clock, 24/7, 365 days a year. As the storms were moving through last night across the coast, we surged our staffing at the local office, so we had several people working the overnight shift to watch over the storms and provide them warnings. So let's go back to that cone that Pat talked about a lot, and I'm going to emphasize again, this is not a cone of impact. A lot of people mistaken the forecast cone with the track of a hurricane as a cone of impact, meaning if you're outside the cone, you're in good shape. That is not the case. That cone is only talking about where the center of the storm is likely to go. We all know that the hurricane is much more than a center. Some are very large. Impacts can occur well outside the cone. And so don't assume you're safe because you're falling outside the cone. Make sure you're staying up to date on local information about what those local impacts are going to be. The center of the storm may not come your way, but you can still get a significant storm surge. You can still get tornadoes. You can still get significant flooding. So, as Pat said, we've been on a mission to try to help change the mindset. Hey, I grew up here. The category of the storm has been the thing, right? That's the thing everybody talks about, everybody focuses on. I lived it, I know it, I understand it. But it doesn't give you the whole picture. It's only talking about one aspect of the storm, the wind. That's all the category talks about, is how strong the winds are. And wind is important. We have to prepare for wind, but it doesn't give you the full picture. You combine that with what Pat showed, the spaghetti model plots. I love spaghetti for dinner, but that's about it. I encourage you to have the same mindset because it breeds confusion, uncertainty. Let the meteorologists, let the professionals look at those things. We're looking through all that data. We know which plots are worth looking at. We know which ones to throw in the trash can, right? Let us filter through that information. That's what the Hurricane Center is doing, coming up with that forecast. That's what we're doing as well. And so it's just, we're trying to change the mindset to put more emphasis on local impacts and the local watches and warnings that are issued. So when we talk about impacts, we have to think of it in the realm of personal vulnerability. Here's a map that shows every tropical depression, tropical storm, and hurricane that has crossed within the general area since the mid-1800s. That's a cluttered map. We are, a lot of storms. We have a lot of experiences here. But every storm is different, as Pat alluded to. I really emphasize that. Every storm is different. Don't let a past experience dictate your future response. Something very striking was told to me many years ago when I was at a meeting with emergency management officials in Mississippi. And they said, do you know what the greatest killer in Hurricane Katrina was? Does anybody have an idea? I won't go that harsh. No, but let's think about it. Let's be a little bit more human and empathetic in what people are going through in their decision processes. Hurricane Camille.
I lived through that. I was on the beach, and we didn't leave. And my house practically blew away.
You were during Katrina or Camille? Camille.
I was 9 years old. It was as far as I'd ever been through.
Camille was a frightening, devastating storm, but it was a small storm. And I'm not diminishing Camille in any way whatsoever. But Katrina was 2 to 3 times the size of Camille. So while Camille had a devastating storm surge, devastating impacts in the small area where it made landfall, Katrina was a completely different storm. So if you had somebody several blocks inland somewhere on the Mississippi coast and they were outside that core of Camille, they probably didn't get the storm surge in Camille. And so people let their guard down. Well, it didn't happen in Camille. Camille was the worst thing that ever happened. I was good in Camille. And then Katrina came along and inundated the entire Mississippi coast, in some places for miles inland. A completely different animal. That was very striking to me. So we can say, hey, people, people didn't make the right decisions. How could they not listen? We all base it of our human experiences, right? We're factoring a lot of process, a lot of decisions when we're going through an event. Social scientists tell us, I'm a meteorologist, I'm not a social scientist. We work very closely with social science and talk about human response. As humans, we're going to find a reason not to do it, not to do anything to prepare, right? You're going to look for the out. Well, it's not going to be really that bad, is it? It looks like it's going over a little bit further to the east of us. We're good. I've done it. I'm not pointing any fingers here. Me too. It's human. But we can't let these past storms tell us the story for the next storm. We saw the same thing in Hurricane Sally. I talked to several people along the coast when we were out after Sally. Some told me this was way worse than Ivy. And then I had the same number of people in different areas tell me, yeah, Sally was bad, but it was no Ivy. And they're within 10 miles of each other. They're both very valid experiences based on where they were, the differences in the storm, the differences in the areas that got flooding. So again, each storm is unique, and I just really encourage people not to use past storms to impact their decisions for future storms. As Pat mentioned, We're losing more people each and every year in tropical systems to the water. Over 80% of fatalities are water related. The most from freshwater flooding. You can't forget about rip currents, especially with the beaches out here, right? Rip currents are a thing. They kill more people year in and year out on average than any other hazard that we have. And then we have storm surge as well. At 11% for storm surge since 2013, that used to be over 50%. We've made large advancements in awareness of storm surge, our forecasting, our ability to tell people where it's going to flood. So fortunately, those numbers have come down, but we're still losing a lot of people to the water. 12% are related to the wind. So wind's a big deal. I'm not discounting wind, but think about it. Again, the category of the storm is about the wind speed. So this category of the storm, the Saffir-Simpson scale, is only talking about the impact that's producing 12% of fatalities, whereas the category is not talking about the other 80% plus. So, you know, we all have the mindset, like, it's just a category 1. But when that category 1 is sitting over the same location for 2 days and dropping 30 inches of rain and produces devastating flooding, changes the perspective a little bit. And we saw that with Sally. We saw it with Sally. Sally produced widespread 20+ inches of rain, nearly 30 inches max, widespread 1 to 2 feet of rainfall, numerous flash flood emergencies, major issues. Yes, Sally strengthened at landfall. Sally was a category 2, almost a category 3 at landfall. Those rain totals were going to happen whether it strengthened or not. That was going to happen. The intensity forecast was not going to impact that. The intensity certainly impacted the wind damage potential and what was realized, and somewhat the storm surge, but not the rainfall. In fact, if you look at the top 10 rainfall producers that we have on record, almost all of them are not major hurricanes, or were not major hurricanes when they produced the rainfall. We all remember the talk of the major flooding in Houston, the Houston area after Harvey, right? Yes, Harvey made landfall as a category 4, down in Corpus Christi, Texas. All the rain came when the storm was basically a weak tropical storm. And why? Because it just sat in the same area for days and days and days. The category of the storm had no impact on it. Many other examples here again. Number 7, that devastated parts of Baton Rouge, central Louisiana. It didn't even have a name. It wasn't even classified a tropical depression at that point. It's all about the speed of movement when it comes to rainfall. When we talk about storm surge, when you hear a storm surge forecast, 3 to 6 feet of storm surge forecast, what does that mean? We're talking about water above normally dry ground. So I'm just over 6 feet tall, so I'm talking about a 6-foot storm surge, boom, right here. Now we have maps, these color codes that you see for the different levels. We have what we call potential storm surge flooding maps that will give a graphical representation of how much water could be in different locations, because it's different in different locations. You're at different elevations, right? But you don't need to remember what your elevation is or what specific datum, reference point. You just want to know, hey, how much water could there be where my house is? And we provide maps ahead of time that you can find on our website that will share that information with you. It doesn't guarantee you're going to get that much, but it says, hey, given all we know about the storm, all the potentials, this is how much we suggest you prepare for that particular system. And storm surge is complicated, very complicated. Why is that? Because storm surge, yes, intensity matters, but way more so the size of the storm and the specific track of the storm. So take, for example, the top right image you see here was Hurricane Michael, and the track it took, it produced upwards of 14 feet of storm surge in Mexico Beach. Further to the east in Appalachia Bay, they realized, I think it was about 6 to 8 feet of surge. Significant. But what if that track would have shifted just 50 miles? By the way, 50 miles is about the 1-day average forecast error for a storm. All of a sudden, you just do a subtle, you just do 50 miles difference. Now all of a sudden, Mexico Beach only has 4 feet of storm surge, and the Big Bend has 20 feet of storm surge. That's why we give a range of possibilities. That's why we don't talk in absolutes and certainties when it comes to hurricanes. You have to talk about a range of possibilities, and that's what we do with our mapping in our forecasts, is we provide the range of possibilities given this storm, given the uncertainties with this storm. This is what you need to prepare for. And the realities with surge, some are going to get it and some aren't, and that's the reality. Here in Okaloosa County, the coast is what, 30, 40 miles across, roughish? That's a one-day error. It's going to make a whole lot of difference if it comes in at the Santa Rosa, or comes in near Navarre. It's going to be bad for you, versus it coming in just east of you over into Walton County. You're going to get an offshore flow. That's only 30, 40 miles difference. But 2 days ahead of time, you need to prepare for it coming into Navarre. Does that make sense? You need to prepare for that. And if you don't get that surge, thank God, right? Seriously, that's how you have to look at it. So we have watches and warnings for storm surge. A watch means storm surge is possible within the next 48 hours. The warning means it's likely within 36 hours. If you are in a surge zone, an area that we issue a storm surge warning, it will trigger your cell phones through the built-in wireless emergency alerts. I'm sure you've all gotten them for tornado warnings. It goes off. Same thing for a storm surge warning. If you are in that area of the coast that we have issued a storm surge warning for, it will sound with the first issuance of that warning. And again, listen to your local emergency management. They're going to tell you what precautions do you need to evacuate, what evacuation zones are being evacuated. Use that information together to make a good decision for you and your family. Something that I hope we never have to issue here is something we call an extreme wind warning, but it's always something good to be mindful of. This is something else that will trigger your cell phone. If we have the eyewall of a major hurricane, Category 3, that means winds over 110 miles an hour, we will issue an extreme wind warning for where that eyewall is moving across. It's kind of like a tornado warning in the fact that we're telling you to take shelter within your shelter because these are highly damaging winds. Put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. Sounds like a tornado safety message, doesn't it? Right? Because in an extreme wind warning, you're going to have heavy damage outside, but we want people to stay safe inside until that eyewall passes. And so that's something that we knock on wood, never had to issue for our office, right? Because we have not had this, but other offices have. Hurricane Michael, there was an extreme wind warning. Hurricane Laura over Louisiana, the same thing. It's also important to know what we know and when we know it, and what we can tell you at certain points within the storm, within the life cycle of the storm. If we are beyond 7 days, we can give you a general idea of, hey, this is an area we might have to watch for development. I can't give you more than that 7 days out. That's why Pat always says be careful with the social media, because I guarantee you there are going to be posts upon posts from pages giving specifics for storms 7, 10, 15 days out. Ignore them, don't block them, get them out of your life. I'm serious. What does that do? It causes panic, it causes worry, it causes fear. Oftentimes for absolutely nothing. You can tell I'm passionate about it because it upsets me that it upsets people. And it gets people worked up. That's a negative because when the real storm comes and the real threat happens, we don't want people letting their guard down. So 7 days out, we can only give you generalities, right? 5 to 7 days, we're going to get a better idea of the possibilities, but we still can't narrow down the specifics quite yet to a county level. That's going to come more in that 3 to 5 day time frame. We're going to be able to start narrowing down those impacts. Start the potential of the watches and warnings, especially just inside 3 days. And then, of course, when we get to 1 to 2 days, we can get much more specific with our information. But it's a process. Some storms will be more certain than others. Sally, a slow-moving, erratic storm, the uncertainty is going to carry up close to landfall. versus a Michael, where the steering currents were pretty locked in. We had a high range of certainty with the track of Michael. It all depends on the storm. So 5 to 7 days out, monitor the official forecast. Make sure your plans are good. All this information you're getting today, make sure your plans are good, updated, your preparedness kit's good to go. And then as we get closer to the storm, that's when you start putting those plans into motion, if need be, following the advice of your local officials. Just as with the storm surge watch and warning, same with the hurricane watch and warning. Hurricane watch, hurricane conditions are possible within 48 hours. A warning is possible within 36 hours. Now, there's something that you might hear of, and we've had this in the past few years. Have you ever heard of, there's a potential tropical cyclone? How many people have heard that? Okay. So what does that mean? That's a big word. Sometimes we scientists, we like to use lots of words. And what's that really mean? It means that while there's an area we're watching, it's not fully come together yet to become a tropical storm, but we have a high level of confidence it's going to within the next 48 to 72 hours. So we issue what we call a potential tropical cyclone. That way we can start the watch warning process and get all that more specific information out to you. Before, we had to actually wait for the storm to form to be able to do all that. So if the storm is rapidly developing near the coast, our information out to the public was in a much more compressed time frame. So tropical cyclone is just a big term that means tropical depressions, tropical storms, and hurricanes. Don't let that term intimidate you. It just means, hey, there's a potential storm here that we have a high confidence it's going to produce significant impacts. Make sure you have reliable ways to get weather information, more than one way. We all have, pretty much have, most of us have cell phones nowadays. That's a great tool, but it's only one tool in the toolkit. Redundancy is always good. Weather radio is still a good thing to have. Our broadcast partners, like I said, we work very closely with our broadcast meteorologists. We're sharing information all the time, especially in big events. We all are very understanding of the need of getting consistent communication out. Clear, consistent information. And reliable social media accounts. I know you've heard that a lot today, but you're going to get a lot. You're going to get overwhelmed this season. I've already seen it happen. There's already been one post. There was one model that showed a storm out in mid-May.
No battery, please charge.
Sorry about that. We'll go with that. No, that was showing over Louisiana, a tropical system. Garbage. Garbage. Nobody has a reason to post that. That's just to get people worked up. So again, sensationalism versus something more credible. If they're only showing one forecast model, we're talking about impacts 7, 10, 15 days out. It's sensationalistic. Hype versus science. If something seems like it's really trying to drum up your fears and your concerns, 9 times out of 10, they're just trying to get you worked up. If your local broadcast media is not saying it, if your local emergency management is not telling you, if we're not mentioning it, then you can be rest assured that you're okay. The moment we start seeing a sign that we might have to deal with something, we're going to let you know. It's our personal commitment to you. Again, we're part of this community, and we want to give you good information, and that's our goal. So just be aware of these things. And also the anchoring bias. What is the anchoring bias? Social scientists have told us that people will anchor on or latch on to the first piece of information or the first forecast they see. So say you see a forecast track 4 days out and it's not showing it's coming here. The human bias is to say, oh, I'm good. That's somebody else's problem. The problem with that is there's a lot that can happen between 4 days out and landfall, right? So it's about staying up to date with information through the entire storm to make sure nothing has changed, make sure that you don't have to start preparing for something. I've already kind of talked about this, but together, it's all about togetherness, the trust, and relationships with the local community, and we're gonna gonna provide you that information, again, when we have to start really considering the potential of the storm. There's a lot of information here. We have a QR code for anybody maybe that wants to scan our local preparedness guide. I know Oklahoma County's got their own local guides that's even got more information that we have. So there's a lot of great resources out there. See if you scanning, I'll give it a few moments, and then I'll. All right. And then, so our local website, weather.gov/MOB, is the local page for the National Weather Service Mobile, Pensacola. We don't bury the lead. We're going to put up the most important information up front, so you know, get the best information for you and your family, all year round, but especially during a hurricane time. We're also on Facebook and X/Twitter. I still call it Twitter, but I know it's X. We're providing, especially on Facebook and X, we're providing routine updates during the storm. Instagram and YouTube is more informational, preparedness stuff. Our Facebook information, our X information will stay up to date and provide you all that latest information that we are seeing to help keep you updated. And with that, I thank you for your time. It's a pleasure to be with you all, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have if we have time. Yes?
You know the informational classes that we have that you get certified in basic weather advance, do those certificates expire?
They don't technically expire, although we do recommend refreshers every couple of years, just to kind of make sure you stay up to date. They don't have an official expiration
Yeah,
date.
we try to Google it in some of our websites, and, some say 4 or 5 years, some say, there's nothing, so, because I am certified with you.
Okay, wonderful. Appreciate that. I always think it's good, every couple of years, just to make sure contact information's good and things like that. It's just kind of a good refresher every couple of years. Yes, sir.
Hopefully a copy of the slides.
Copy of the slides, we can,
You know what I could do, or if you're okay with it, Jason, I could throw them up on Okaloosa County's website on the emergency management page. I'll have just a link to it'll be called like 2025 Hurricane Preparedness Expo Jason Beeman presentation.
Yeah, fantastic. Yes, sir.
Shouldn't count on Waffle House.
Waffle. There's a lot of jokes about that, but there's actually, there's a little bit of merit to it. What do they do here in the snowstorm? They close down? They're open. They were open? Wow. Maybe not. That's exactly right. Good to get to it. Yes, sir.
How many National Weather Service offices are there on the whole Gulf Coast, say like Tippett, Florida, all the way to Brownsville?
Sure. I'll name them off as these. We got Brownsville, Texas. We have Corpus Christi. We have Houston, Lake Charles, New Orleans, Mobile, Tallahassee, Tampa, Miami, and Key West. So that was 9 or 10.
So, God forbid, y'all got wiped out, we rely more on maybe Tallahassee.
Great question. Great question. We do have contingencies. We do have backup plans. Should something happen to us, even if it's a communication problem, for some reason we do have a backup system. New Orleans is our primary backup, Tallahassee is our secondary backup, and then Key West is actually our tertiary backup. The goal of that is that you never know if we're down. Things continue on. So we do have contingencies in place should something happen.
If storm event, you take it straight to them, you're on.
Absolutely.
Y'all out of communications with New Orleans, or?
New Orleans, Tallahassee, it depends on who else is impacted. That's why we have like Key West, it's kind of far away, because sometimes if we're impacted, so is New Orleans or Tallahassee. And so we do have a lot of options to be able to keep that flow of information going to where hopefully it's not noticeable to you all that you might be down for whatever reason. For example, we've had to take shelter a few times from tornado warnings the past year. We follow our own advice. The storm's coming our way, we're taking shelter, and we hand it off to one of our other offices until we can, leave the shelter and return back to our workstations.
You mentioned a lot of your information is radio-based. You in any danger of losing if they're on public radio and all that's potentially in trouble? Any of this going to be affected by any of that?
That'd be speculation on my part. I know, local broadcast, especially local broadcast radio and television are sound sources. They're gonna, be reliable, through events. When we get a big storm, it becomes more of a challenge of what does the storm do to our communication, what does it do to our antennas and things of that nature. I don't have any concern that you're gonna lose access to information. That's why when I talk about redundancies, it's if something happens to one of them, especially from a technical side, or the storm causes issues. For example, Hurricane Michael completely wiped out a lot of the cell phone coverage. And it became local radio stations. That was the only way you were getting information after Hurricane Michael.
It's interesting, y'all are over the Department of Commerce.
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting.
Yes, we're the Department of Commerce, and we're part of NOAA. So NOAA's a agency under, and then we fall under NOAA. Yes, sir.
I was wondering how much, connection, contact, whatever, y'all have with the, local, amateur radio?
We do a lot of work with the local amateur groups. A lot of it is through the counties and their programs, the areas, amateur radio, emergency services, the local groups. We do have an amateur radio group, and sometimes on big events, we'll work out of our office too. Especially if a big hurricane's coming, we'll have those contingencies in place. So amateur radio is still very much a big part of what we do. I know, after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, the way they got information out from the office that, hey, they needed some help because they had impacts was from amateur radio. So we definitely, we cherish the amateur radio community and rely on their information. And it's really, especially like through the areas groups that work in concert with emergency management. We're very thankful for all that they do.
If you have a high, surge, how far inland do you usually go?
It depends on your area. It depends on the elevation change. I know here in Okaloosa County, I wouldn't want to get specific miles inland because I'll get it wrong. But Okaloosa County, the elevation change is pretty quickly, it rises quickly, only a few miles from the coast, versus a coastal Mississippi, where it's a very shallow rise in elevation, and the water can spread 10, maybe some places 15, 20 miles inland. I don't think you would have that extent here in Okaloosa County. It's all very based on the local topography of the area and exactly where you are. That's why those maps that we produce, and that's what the evacuation zones are tied off of how far could the water get. So if you're not in an evacuation zone, then the odds are that the storm surge aspect of it wouldn't impact you. Doesn't mean that flooding rain can't impact you though.
We're gonna say goodbye and thank you to Mr. Bateman and move on.
And I like spaghetti for dinner, but that's about it.
We're gonna, if our panelists can go ahead and find their seats, I'm gonna play a couple of videos while we have a Q&A with some folks from our law enforcement, first responders, and some of our utilities. So if you guys wanted to stick around for that, grab a glass of water or drink or go to the bathroom real quick, but I'm gonna play a couple of videos for you guys, so stick around if you can.
County Emergency Management?
I'm with the county's public information.
Okay, so that the website is for the county's public
Hello to my
information
friends
site.
in Okaloosa County. I'm Chief Meteorologist Alan Strong from the WEAR TV studios in Pensacola, Okaloosa County. is an important part of our viewing area, and we always like to tell the weather and the happenings of Okaloosa County. In fact, one of our favorite cameras is this view here from the Gulf Area WeatherNet camera, a recent scene looking out over the Gulf. We've had such nice weather, it's starting to warm up, the weather's getting more humid, and of course hurricane season is upon us. June 1st is the official start to hurricane season. We've got some numbers from Colorado State University. They're projecting more active than normal hurricane season for 2025. As you look at these numbers, Colorado State suggests 17 named storms would normally, on an average season, we'd have about 14. 9 hurricanes would normally we'd have 7. And major hurricanes being category 3 or higher, 4, with a normal season seeing about 3. And of course, it's cliche, we say it, but it only takes that one storm to make it feel like a very busy season. And we're hoping for the best. I'm meteorologist Alan Strong.
This is very helpful. So we do have those Skyborn spotter classes that she's referring to.
How do you find out about them?
So on our website, weather.gov/MOB.
Yeah, sure.
It's called Skyborn spotter class.
We'll have a chit chat here. Feel free to come. This is going to be really informal, this next one, so feel free to grab a spot up front. We're going to do some Q&A if you guys want.
Go to weather.gov.
So take a right and just keep on going towards the tax collector.
/MOB. That will take you to our office. And anytime we have classes scheduled, we'll have a link on the top. There's also a dedicated page for the spotter class.
Sounds, we're in the 55 group. And the other thing I would ask is, again, came in, I come here all the time. I use the Florida Storms app.
Okay.
It allows me to, figure out how to
Stage indication for various policies.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So it gives me
Fantastic.
the weathers, and I can set alerts.
Fantastic.
So this actually goes off at night, which is, I'm new to the area.
Right.
And I've actually, is that, do you have another place to check the weather? Because it was very interesting when you mentioned the categories of information that comes out, how people talk and, it's what it should be.
Right.
And we'll do YouTube. We've got 2 people we like to listen to. He'll talk about how it's out there. This is going to happen in the next 10 days. There's a couple of them are pretty darn accurate. But we go, okay, let's see what happens. But this thing is, well, I've got a lot of red dots.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So these are where other people live. And when my wife went on a cruise, I said, I want to see what's happening.
Sure.
She actually danced around that last hurricane.
Oh, wow.
In the cruise. But, yeah, I didn't know how you felt about that, or getting good information is important.
That, from what you showed me here, that is a good one, because I can see there was on the front
I'm gonna play
page,
this
there's
video.
some weather service images on there, so.
Oh!
Florida.
Sorry.
Sorry. They do partner with us.
Right.
So you're getting good information there. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend that at all.
And then I use the emergent Red Cross.
Yes, wonderful. Absolutely.
And they do the same thing. Drives my wife nuts. Drives my wife nuts because the phone will go off in the middle. It's within 15 miles. It'll tell me if the cloud freezes.
No, you got some good move there.
I'm constantly looking to make it better. This gentleman.
Sir, hi.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for sticking around. I always like to play this video. Speaking of the human part of the impacts, the local impacts. There's also the actual impact, and so you may hear some of the experience. One of our panelists has actually lived through Hurricane Michael, and so Miss Laura Valera from FPL. So, but I wanted to play this. I think it's pretty impactful. A little sad, but still important.
Tampa, my mom got really sick and she passed away.
Also, do you have?
And what I remember, my most vivid memory would be
you familiar with Civics Chat at all? Okay, because you're the coordinator. Are you the coordinator for?
Screaming.
So for the coordinators,
For help
you
and
can
stuff.
get, so Innovis Chat is an
Since
internal
then, I've had like PTSD,
chat
like
system that we
depression.
use. That's the weather service, local emergency management, areas coordinators, broadcast meteorologists, not the whole media, broadcast meteorologists on an internal chat network.
It seemed like such a short amount of time,
So if
yet
you're a
so long,
coordinator, we
and
can
during
get
the
you
eye.
access to
We
that.
were right in the middle of the eye,
It's
so some of
basically
their neighbors came
it's a
over to
pipeline
get us
to
out
our
of the
office. So
house.
say you're getting
So
a
that
report
was
of
probably the
damage.
most vivid part, was
Somebody
the
you're
fact
using
that we
your
had to switch
team,
houses in the middle of the
it's something
storm.
critical.
After everything was done, you'd go
Chat that
outside and
information
it's
to
like
us in
a
that chat.
dream. Like how
Also, you can get
something like
updates
this
from us,
happen to
right?
you, you see it on TV, but then you don't really think something like that could happen to you until it really
Things of that
does.
nature.
It's not anything
Real
like
situation
anything.
awareness tool too. You know, even with our amateur radio groups, we do a lot of that on some more of our typical events through, that's become the guys that we go to.
I was just
You also do your networks and your local networks, and that's fantastic. But
I was getting
that chat,
stabbed all over me,
we found
sticky.
I'm just here for that moment. No, I didn't really own it. Everything belonged to the storm. It was.
They're just taking a weird time.
Spraying the kids down with bug spray before bed, and walking like miles and miles to go get ice and stuff to make sandwiches. And it was so hot, and it was a lot to take in. And it was very, very difficult. It was extremely difficult.
I remember going outside and just looking up at the sky going, wow, I have nothing to go back to now.
It's a very sad thing, and no one should have to go through it, but I do think our community has gotten a lot stronger through it. Doesn't matter what school you've gone to, we all try to help each other in whatever way we can, and it makes my heart very warm to know that no matter what we go through, everyone has each other's back.
And the way also that our teachers put us before themselves, whether we were in another classroom, whether we were sitting in no air conditioning and everybody was smelly, our teachers wanted to help us learn as much as possible.
I remember after the storm, just like getting up for school every day was really tough. I like fell into a really deep depression and I didn't go to school and I just would stay home. But then now, since it's my senior year, my mom would want to see me excel. So I just know that I just won't take life for granted ever in my life.
All right, so we'll move on to the next part here. So we have, so that video, just, those are the folks that we have on the panel are the folks that'll be take care of those folks out there. We have some folks from Okaloosa Gas, FPL, Okaloosa County Sheriff's Office, and our Water and Sewer Department. So let me just have you guys introduce yourselves and what agency or organization you guys represent. We'll just start right here. You guys do have microphones, so.
Good afternoon, Chris Heaston with Okaloosa Gas District.
Ryan Prince, Okaloosa County Emergency Management.
Laura Blair, Florida Power and Light.
Kevin Cratchit,
Mike Hackett, Director of Okaloosa County Water and Sewer.
And Mike, let's just stay on you. So describe a little bit about what your department in the county, what do you guys do as far as the storm preparation, before, during, after the storm. Talk a little bit about what you guys think about.
Sure. We provide water and sewer for Okaloosa County. Our service area is from Okaloosa Island. Is that better? Yeah. Can you hear me better? Yeah. Okay. We provide service from Okaloosa Island, Crestview, and from Tula Rosa to Blue Water Bay. We aren't the only water provider, but as far as sewer goes, and treatment, we manage treatment from Fort Walton Beach system, shifts, and we'll be executing our plans to mitigate anything that would disrupt service for any of our service areas.
What are some of the big concerns that you guys worry about?
For us, really, probably one of the first and foremost is power. Our wells and tanks, most all of those have generators. We have 20 wells, we have 20 tanks. And so those tank systems are interlocked in a distribution system. So a lot of them, if something goes down, we have other things that can feed the area and maintain a constant pressure in our tanks. And so that's an important thing to bring up. If there is a power issue, we would want for all of our residents in those hurricane events to try and conserve as much as possible. If we've lost power to wells or a series of wells, the only water we're going to have is what's in the tank. And as that's used, the pressure will drop. And so, along those lines, if your water is clear and is still pressurized, it generally should be fine because the water system is a closed loop system. And so, if it is pressurized, it's clear, no odor, no anything that would make you suspicious, then you can generally accept it as safe. On the sewer side, that's a little bit different. It's a combined pressurized and gravity-based system. So when we have, as Jason had mentioned, if we get 30 inches of rain, our sewer system's in trouble. It's going to be flooded, it's going to be overwhelmed. We're going to be in an effort to try and get power for bypass plants. Not all of our lift stations, which are the backbone of the sewer system, have generators. We have 157 stations. So they're spread out over a very large geographic area. So we'll be focusing a lot on that. If wind is not an issue, but rain is, we're going to have a heavy focus on the sewer side. If wind is a big issue and we're losing power in a lot of places, it's going to be switched to that side. So one situation might have us getting generators out to different places. One situation might have us trying to get bypass pumps out to keep the sewer system going. The sewer system starts from the outside and works its way in toward the treatment plant. So if you're having trouble, just bear with us. We've got an issue to try and keep the system going. The county produces millions and millions of gallons a day of sewage. So the treatment plants are all that's able to process that. So we have to have our lift stations, as they pump to each other into the plant, we've got to keep them going. And so that's going to be one of our primary focuses, is to keep the system as a whole working together. As time goes on, and we make sure that that's in place, we'll start working on individual customers and concerns or problems they're having at their location.
Gotcha, thanks, Mike. Major Kirkpatrick, from the Sheriff's Office point of view, what are some of the concerns that you guys worry about before the storm and then maybe some of the stuff after?
So it's actually a pretty complicated problem, to be honest with you. For us, keeping the public involved, keeping them knowledge, if you can follow our social media, the county social media, we highly encourage you to do that. It's probably going to be the best source of information that you can get locally. On top of that, we have many plans for how we're going to deal with this, but it's a multifaceted issue. The problem is first thing first, Oakland's County Sheriff's Office runs all 911. We take all 911 calls for the county, so we work very tightly with emergency management. We work with fire services. We work with Oakland City EMS to make sure that, A, when your calls for help come in, we get it to them properly. And that's if your phone lines work, if you have power at your house, if you're able to even get in touch with us. So we work on that. We work with emergency management on how we're going to open and close roads as far as getting people out. And then once the storm's passed, how we're going to get people back in. Do we need to close down neighborhoods? Do we need to go around by PA and start notifying neighborhoods that they need to evacuate from the mandatory evacuation order? Because you may not receive those text alerts. You may not be getting that information. So we try to help with all that. We have to staff up our staff to full Alpha Bravo schedules, which means everybody works within a 24-hour operational period to make sure that we have people at traffic control points to keep the roads open. There are a lot of things we have to do, and on top of that, all our staff have to worry about their family and their homes as well. It is a very large apple to start to bite, but we just bite one bite at a time, and eventually we get everything accomplished.
I was going to ask.
Best part is planning, honestly.
I was going to ask. So, is there any point where during or after a storm where if somebody were to call 911, emergency services wouldn't get to somebody, or how does how do they think about that up in the 911 communications area?
So think about a storm, a very high, dangerous storm. Think of it in stages. There comes a time where an EMS rig, because they're big and boxy, cannot drive on the road, or a fire truck cannot drive on the road because they will get toppled over the line. I don't know their threshold. Do you know the threshold?
Yeah, Ryan?
I believe the threshold is the same as for bridges and whatnot, is 40 miles
40 miles an hour.
Sustained.
Sustained.
Sustained. So for us, we have a more tiered approach. For less important calls for service, we stop those at say 30 miles per hour, and then 40 miles per hour, and then our absolute emergency, we're not coming out once it hits 70. We are done. And if you remember Pat Mattis' slide up there, if you were there earlier, that is a strong tropical storm. That's not even hurricane winds yet, for which we're going to tell you we are not able to get to you. And you have to remember that during those big storms, after the storm, we may not, the winds have died down, but we may not be able to get to you because there are hundreds of trees down, right? I can't get an EMS rig to you. I can't get a fire truck to you. I can't get a law enforcement officer to you. And it may take us a while. That's why we highly, when we tell you to get out, we're serious. It is for your benefit. We need you to get out because we can't promise to you at what point we're going to be able to get to you.
That's exactly what I was hoping you'd talk about. So yeah, that's why these things. That's why being prepared is important, and spread the word to all your friends and family. So we're going to move on to speaking of power. Laura from Florida Power. Well, it's FPL. Sorry. You talked to me and you were telling me that you lived in Bay County during Hurricane Michael, and so you have very personal experience with a very strong storm. That sucker the wind was unbelievable. Talk about maybe that experience, and then everybody wants to know, how do you guys get the power lines up? How do I get my power back on? When am I going to get my power? And not just hurricanes, that's for any sort of storm. So.
I'd be glad to. Again, my name is Laura Blair with Florida Power and Light, and I've been with the power company for 32 years. I'm from Bay County. I still live in Bay County. I'm taking over today for Bernard Johnson, who he's here in Okaloosa County with you, and a fine man at that. He's at a wedding of one of his children today. But I can definitely speak to you from experience because I was put in charge of a storm site for Hurricane Michael and Hurricane Sally, but specifically I wanted to talk to you about Hurricane Michael. I stayed because I thought I have to get to my storm site. So I stayed and I looked at the weather at the night before I went to bed, and I thought there's no way it'll hit where they say it's going to hit. And it always dies in severity before it hits, and that didn't happen. It gained strength, and it hit exactly where they said it was going to hit. And when it came, it was like you felt like you had drank too much caffeine, and you kept thinking, when is it going to be over? It sounded like a really loud train, And we had our windows boarded with plywood, but where I could see out the French door, it was like a wall of white. It was like somebody had put a sheet over the glass. And my husband is a large man, and he had to hold the door, our front door, from coming open because of the pressures. And at one point in time, he asked me to help him hold that door. And everyone seemed to have a similar experience because of the pressures from that hurricane. We had to hold our doors from just flinging open. It was a surreal experience. Once I got out on the road and headed to my storm site, it was like something out of a movie. The bay line, you talk about dangerous for the ambulances to be on the road. The bay line railroad cars were off the tracks on their sides. And when the people in the corporate office called one of the engineers and said, how bad is it? The whole system had to be rebuilt. It was that bad. But basically the way that we restore power is we start from the power plant. And we make sure that the lines from the power plant to the substations have power to be able to create to move the power that's created onward. And then we go to critical infrastructure after that. It's called a CIF list, critical infrastructure functions like hospitals, water treatment sites, the police and fire stations, communications, transportations, providers and that type of thing, the critical needs. And then from there, it goes to the largest amount of people that we can get in on in the shortest amount of time. And then from there, they take it to small neighborhoods and small groups until they've got everyone on. Does that answer your question?
It did, yeah. And so essentially, you guys have to prioritize that way. That's the only reasonable way to do it. So those of you that don't maybe live near a hospital or in a highly populated area, just be aware of that. So yeah, thanks, Laura. And then Ryan, you work for the county emergency management chief. What's the county's role with a storm? We heard from Pat Maddox earlier today, but what does the county do for the storm? What do you guys do?
A lot, and I'm going to try to make it as general as I can, because there's so much to it, just like Major Capatch was saying. We, at emergency management level, we organize the chaos, the herd, the cats. We make sure that everyone gets the information they need, because there's a lot of information coming in, to make the correct decisions to respond to the correct places. We also help with resource requests. Every resource request in the county of a first responder or any responder for that matter will come to our emergency operations center, to emergency management, and we'll source it from there. Can we handle it in county? Can we request it from the state? Our neighboring county, are they impacted as bad as we are? Can they also assist? So all that information, those resource requests, all come in to our emergency operations center at emergency management. We also deal with the volunteers and making sure that plans that are written by our sister organizations all kind of work in timing. It's like a big engine, making sure that timing is there and that we're not stepping over each other, and we work more efficiently together, because the more efficiently we work, the faster we can get recovery done, the faster we can get the power, the faster we can get our sewer system up and running, and those critical life needs are done, and we can start rebuilding.
So who's the boss? Is there a chain of command in these situations? Is there any infighting going on? What is that? Without getting too much into the weeds on that ICS or NIMS, but can you talk a little bit about that, I guess?
So there is a hierarchy. There is a chain of command, because without that, everyone's doing their own thing, and there's not. It keeps the communication down to where it needs to be, and that span of control, making sure everybody knows what they're doing, they know who to report to, and that accountability is done. So in the county, we have our policy group that consists of the BCC and consists of our the Director of Public Safety. At that time becomes the incident commander for Okaloosa during that disaster. My position, I've become the Deputy incident commander for the county. But most of my duties are going to be out inside the EOC, making sure things are running smoothly on the floor, and making sure that communication's going on, and basically getting that done. And from there, it's very general. We have, with ICS, you have something called a slip, and you have something called the FLOP, which is the FLOP is your finance, logistics, operations, and plans. And that's that organization that I'd be over during emergency.
Okay, and pretty much organized chaos is a great way to put it.
Yes.
Organize the chaos. Chris, sorry, last but not least, from Okaloosa Gas perspective, what do you guys worry about when it comes to storms?
Well, probably the number one thing we worry about is uprooted gas lines. Since the majority of our infrastructure is below ground, two key issues we look at, again, is where trees may uproot service lines to people's homes or even natural gas mains. Of course, that creates a lot of time to create a gas leak, and we'll have to respond to the gas emergency. Also, in huge storms, those storms that have a significant tidal surge or storm surge, there is concerns about erosion and so forth. One of our major header lines for our entire system runs along Highway 98, and if you have say a Katrina level event or a major storm that has a pretty significant tidal surge, it's possible that parts of that line could be exposed. And when you have an instance like that, it could be debris or something like that could pierce those lines, which can slow down the recovery effort, because we have to go and repair those lines. First of all, get access to the lines, because a lot of times the bridges will be out or so forth. And we worry about that. We plan around that. We have valves and stuff in place throughout our system to try to isolate, where those areas. Try to isolate the system to protect the system as much as possible, so we don't lose the entire system. But all of our gas supply for our system, we have 5 major inputs into the system, basically from everything from over Escambia County all the way over to Walton County, and all of our major inputs into the system are all north of I-10. So we're not worried about the gas supply portion. We're just worried about, what could be an isolated event if there's erosion, major erosion, or a lot of down trees that could uproot gas lines.
Are those inputs, those 5 inputs, they need electricity too, right?
Yeah, we have most of the time we have redundant power sources. So if we don't have natural gas, if we don't have electrical supply to them, we do have solar supply. And in some situations, which are very critical, we have pneumatically driven equipment that can generate the power pneumatically and help control our station and stuff. So
we can get some of those. And so, by the way, if anybody has any questions while we're chit-chatting here, just go ahead and ask them. She got to you first. Kathy, go ahead.
Chilton High School had a December dance at Bob Hope Village. She called me, my granddaughter. I needed to get there. Shalimar Bridge was either Shalimar or Cedar Light, I'm not sure, was closed because of an incident. If during a storm something like that happened, I called 651-7400. I was directed to call a radio station or some stuff. What is the protocol if something like that happens?
So I'll cover some of that. It's going to be the citizen information line during the hurricane. That'll tell you and give you some of that information there. You can call them up. We post information as well. Nick does an amazing job with that, posting that information up on our websites. Our EM page turns into the EOC page. Alert Okaloosa. Nick's will get that information out to you. But CIL, you can call them for.
Is that number in the book that we have?
Yes, it is. It is in that guidebook, and I definitely please grab one of those hurricane guides. They have a lot of pertinent information
citizen information line always on? Is it always available, or is it just during activations, or?
When there's a disaster, that becomes it. So when we activate our emergency operations center, the CIL becomes active to answer those phone calls, because whenever that happens, there are a lot of phone calls come in. I believe with the last was Sally, there were over 1,000 phone calls that came into the CIL for request of information, and instead of hitting the emergency operations center, the CIL gets the same information. They're co-located with the emergency operations center, so they're getting it right from the source as soon as possible.
Anything you can do to not dial dispatch, to be perfectly honest with you, we highly encourage that. Dispatch goes on 24/7 Alpha Bravo schedule as well, so we double the manpower. We actually spent a little over $1 million in the EOC 2 years ago to make it more robust and be able to have larger staffing numbers for a major incident. But those phones don't stop. So if you can, Nixle is probably the best way to find out about traffic. It's Nixle. If you just look up, do an internet search for Nixle, it's through Everbridge. You can sign up for text alerts and email alerts. And it gives you all the traffic closures that we have going on throughout the county. And we keep that thing very, very busy. You're going to get a lot of alerts.
Yeah, you guys do a great job of that. Hang on a second, Miss Moneypenny first, yes.
A question about EV vehicles. What type of preparedness do you give out to those people? Because if they're in a storm surge, some of those EVs can catch fire because of the salt water, and they're very hard to put out. So are you putting out any special information to, should they move the vehicles to higher ground, or what if they leave them there? Is there any precautions that they should take, because that's more prevalent now than in the past?
Yeah, that would probably be my job to put that out to y'all. Have you heard any?
Yes.
What do you guys? What are the stories you guys know about this stuff?
That is an awesome and amazing question. Thank you for it. I'm sure that's out there a lot, and in fact, it's part of hurricane preparedness information that I'm sending you soon. That's one of those things. Yes. If you're in a known flood zone or a surge zone, get those EVs out of there and get them to higher ground. They will cause a fire with that saltwater intrusion. If you are unable to, the suggestion is get it away from the house, because the worst that can happen is you start now your house is on fire. And with firefighters busy and maybe we don't have that access to that area, you can burn down a whole neighborhood, and we don't want that to happen. So the very first one is, with yourself too, it comes with self-safety, is evacuate. So evacuate the vehicle, get it to higher ground. If you can't do that, remove the vehicle from inside a garage, let's say, or close to anything that's flammable, so that it doesn't catch the surrounding area on fire. And it's a very interesting process to move the EVs after a storm has occurred and they've had that flood damage. And our firefighters, they're in the back over here. Yep, there you go. They're very, very trained at how to do that, and it's since EVs have come out and that has become a high topic and a big priority, and we're learning lessons every storm with EVs. Everyone's very trained, and there's lots of information coming out. But yes, as we get closer to that time, and especially if we are in the crosshairs, you will see information being released out through all of our means regarding EV safety and what to do with your possessions.
Yes, sir.
So, this is keeping title more or less. Do any of y'all have any suggestions, concerns, advice, especially to homeowners and such, to, if they are going to evacuate, to shut off their utilities before they leave?
Mike, do you Mike and our utility folks, you guys want to talk about that? Turn on your mic, Mike.
I'm in trouble with that. As far as your water and sewer utilities go, if you're going to evacuate, you could, as a precaution, turn the water off. If it's not a freezing situation, it's probably not going to amount to much, but it's not going to hurt anything. As far as the sewer side goes, There may or may not be the possibility, it depends upon the rain levels, flooding levels, whether or not a backup could occur. So, but there's really no way to shut that sewer system.
Well, the backup, like, to save the backup collision stuff, there's no really way that now homeowner would get too much for that.
That's correct.
Laura, should people turn, if they're in an evacuation, should they turn their power on? Does it matter? Or?
Well, I personally would fill up the bathtubs before I left. I would do that, and I do that every storm now that I've experienced Hurricane Michael. So you have water if you need it when you get back. But from an energy efficiency standpoint, I would definitely not leave your air conditioning down low or anything like that. I would turn it up, so it didn't make the house comfortable for somebody that wasn't there. And also, I would turn your water heater off at the breaker.
That I would think is especially for the possibility of like safety issue and such.
And then, Chris, I don't have gas, so I'm not as knowledgeable about that, but.
So for natural gas, Nick, what happens is that you really don't have to turn off your gas to your home. In the event, say for example, you're in a flood problems area. In a flood problem area, you have a storm surge and your house is moved or the line gets sheared away from the house. All of our gas lines have what we call EFVs, which are excess flow valves. So in the event that there's a sensing of a large use of gas coming through, the line will shut off. So and we'll shut it off at just there. The only problem we'd have with the gas would be at the main if it was something that's sheared away from the main itself. But for a service line, we have excess flow valves in the east service line that prevents gas migration.
So we all have basically a automatic shut-off system.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So since we're on the utilities, if people want to report something, want to have an outage or whatever, we'll go each one. We'll start with you, Chris. What's the best way for people to reach out to you guys?
In the event we have, like I said, call our customer service line and report an outage. Report if you smell gas blowing. The biggest thing that we worry about after the storm is the fact that probably houses have been moved, trees are uprooted, gas will be blowing. You will smell that gas because we do have the gas odorized. And the biggest thing is do not smoke. If you can smell it, most likely
Put that on the big
Keep them occupied while I get the end.
Wow, that was weird.
Also, if you leave, take copies of your homeowner's policies, right? Any important documentation, and then take copies with you. You may be out of your home for an extended period. You may have a worst case scenario, you never know what's gonna happen. So, make that a part of your plan to get out. So, add your EV vehicles to your plan, add that, medications. You need to have a substantial amount of medications. Our disabled community who are on oxygen, that is a major concern. You need to have that availability. You cannot expect to be able to call your provider and they provide it to you 2 days after a storm. You are going to have to plan to be self-sufficient for an extended period of time. And if we get it up and running in 2 days, we did a great job. But part of my job at the sheriff's office is I go around the state responding to these hurricanes. I've gone to the last 5. I went to Michael before those. Sometimes it takes an extended period of time. That last storm I went to, that was just the other side of Tallahassee. Was that Ian? I can't remember what storm that was. I took a whole crew. My crew, all we did was cut trees. You said, cops cut trees? Yep. That's all we did was cut trees because there was no way to get services to citizens. Citizens couldn't get in, couldn't get out of the entire, not a neighborhood, the entire county. We had to cut ways in and cut ways out.
You guys recommend that in your hurricane disaster supply kit? Maybe have a chainsaw? I mean,
Only if you know what you're doing.
there you go, basically, that's the right answer.
Yes. Only if you know what you're doing. I've had personal friends who've had catastrophic injuries due to chainsaws. I do not encourage it for anyone who does not know what they're doing.
Gotcha. Laura, I'm sorry, before we were interrupted on whatever YouTube video was playing, what's the best way for folks to report? Is it an app or?
Well, there's a 1-800 number that we've had for a long time, but it is 1-800-225-5797, and then you can also go to fpl.com, and we do have an app as well.
Okay. And Mike, water and sewer, we have an emergency phone line, but is that something that you want people calling after a storm, or is it more of a be patient, we're gonna get your stuff working again kind of thing?
Right. It's okay. It helps us to get an idea of where we're seeing problems, because we can look at the system on a system level, but we may not be able to see every service, every area. And just know that we'll take your call, we'll log it in, but we may not be responding immediately. It may take some time before we're actually able to get there. We just ask that you be patient. Trust us, we want to be through this as much as you do. But people are going to be working around the clock, and just like Florida Power, we have to have that system. That's the priority, to make sure we can cover as many people back in service, working the way it's supposed to, as soon as possible. And then we'll get to the individual cases.
Yeah, thanks. And you guys all do a great job. I love living here. I love all the services you guys provide. You guys provide it, some of the taxpayers, some via monthly bill. But what are some of the things that the citizens of Okaloosa County can do to both make things better for themselves and make things easier for you to help them? We'll just start with Ryan.
Honestly, having a plan, being patient, and having a good attitude is by far the three things that can help. We're all neighbors helping neighbors. We're all citizens helping citizens. We're all trying to make Okaloosa strong. That's what it comes down to. And that community involvement and that community help, it's amazing. So that's key to recovery.
Major Kirkpatrick, what's your advice?
Plan, leave if you can, and then honestly don't come back till the day you come back. I have seen multiple times where citizens come back because they were told not to come back, but they're like, how bad could it be? They come back to understand there is no power, there is no traffic lights working, there are no services, there are no gas stations open, there's no gas for them to be able to get gas. There are reasons we say to hold off. One of the last hurricanes I went to, a major issue was fuel, right? So people were coming back in town and then they couldn't get from point A to point B because there wasn't no fuel available for the citizens at that time. Stay up to date by listening to us. We're going to give you good advice. That is the biggest thing. And then, we've talked about cars and standing water. Keep this in mind, if there's standing water and the sewer system's not working, stay out of the water. Stay out of the water, it's not healthy for you.
Laura, what do you think? What can folks do for you?
It's a major disruption to your life to have a storm such as Hurricane Michael. And like this gentleman to my right said, just be as patient as possible. Know that people are working around the clock, and you may never see them. But I can tell you firsthand that the people at the power company that are trying to get you back on, they care. I've seen it in the middle of the night, in the wee hours of the morning when it is so hard. They care, and they are working hard to try to get you back on. And also, realize that your neighbor might get on before you, and that doesn't mean that we have forgotten you. You might be on a separate line, there may be a dangerous condition, there may be something that you don't know about, but utilize the tools that we have through the app or online, and also feel free to contact us as well.
Thanks, Laura. Chris, so what makes life easier for you guys?
Well, as has been touched on, of course, patience is the key. Also, you know, we, much like FPL and other utilities, we track our critical care customers. People's lives change throughout different times. If you are a critical care customer, somebody who has, you know, health needs that needs gas supply or something like that, please contact us so we know who and where you are, because our risk restoration activities, you know, focus on the highest priority customers. Also, I would say do not rely solely on your cell phones. There's been many situations the cell phone networks are out. Hurricanes I've worked with, Katrina, Ida, and some of the other hurricanes I've worked, the cell phone network is out, and a lot of times you've lost total communication because you have no landlines or any other way. And so finding the old throwback type radios and so forth to get your information, or keeping your cars gassed up, listening to the radio is critical in knowing how to deal with the storm and wait it out.
Good point. We always forget about the things that we rely on and take for granted. You know, everything is on here now, and if you can't get it, you're done. Especially if it has no power. So, Mike, what can people do for water and sewer to get better water and sewer service?
Well, I think the key takeaway here, in terms of the ask from us, is patience. I just can't say it enough. I'd like to jump on top of what Ms. Blair said. Of our 157 employees, that they all live here, their families and friends are here. We're your neighbors, we're your community, and I can promise you, just like Florida Power and Light, our people care, and they will not stop until they can get everything done as fast as they can, as best as they can.
I appreciate you saying that. You guys have all said it, patience. We live in the community too. Don't forget that. I mean, you may see the logo on communications that I send out, but there's faces and lives behind that logo. We are big government. We're not trying to screw you. We promise. We all work hard. We're trying to do the best things for you, and we live in a great community too. So everybody cares, and I think the message there is you are not forgotten. We think about you. So. That's all the questions I had. Does anybody else have any questions for our panelists? Yes, sir.
Mark Brown with the CERT program. Earlier there was a question asked about what water and sewer does with the storm drains before in preparation. I don't think I heard an answer. What kind of preventive things we do in our neighborhoods other than HOAs, I guess it is?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
So the question earlier, the question specifically was in an earlier form, and the question was, what preventative actions are you taking to ensure storm drains and such are prepared for the water volume that will come?
On our storm, we don't have storm, that's a public works facility. We have sewer systems, and for those, they're always working. Every time you flush, every time you take a shower, or whatever. So we're always in a mode of making sure everything's flowing back in. If we have heavy amounts of rain, it has a way through inflow or infiltration of overwhelming the system. What we do long term is that we've been in an extensive program to line our sewers so that they're more watertight and they're better able to resist rainfall and high water levels. So that's an ongoing process for us. It's not something that we would immediately do anything different with the sewer system. The water system, we might try and top off all the tanks as best we could. As Jed would Jason to tell us when exactly that's going to go, and then we're going to try and topping off those tanks as much as we can.
And I think, there's a gentleman from our Stormwater Division of Public Works out there, Tyson Eager. If you guys wanted to, if you had some stormwater questions, he's all about it. When I talk about people that like to do their job, he enjoys it. He's very good. He's got this cool little camera that takes down stormwater pipes and stuff to make sure that they're clean. So, yeah. So,
There was one thing I wanted
yeah.
to add. I also wanted to add, and just, I know we mentioned the patience portion. There's a reason for that patience. If you look on some of these apps for our different utilities, you'll see assessment. And in many situations, even leading up to the storm, I'm sure, Laura, with FPL, I know we are, we work up our mutual aid. We're doing with our mutual aid partners. And that's a pretty heavy lift, logistics-wise and coordinating-wise, because a lot of different utilities will be operating on different systems. You got to figure out just the scale and scope of where these mutual aid partners are going to be at. And it takes a little bit of time after the storm to get all that organized and figure out how you're going to dispatch all that work out to make sure you're knocking everything out as fast as possible.
Do you guys, utility-wise, what kind of communications, and maybe Ryan Utilities, what kind of communications do you guys have, like the nitty-gritty parts of that?
During a disaster, they are embedded in our emergency operations center. They have a table at our emergency operations center, so if something's going on, we can walk up and talk to them. We can message them. They are there to answer those questions real time. A good example of this, and we didn't even fully stand up for this. We did a level 2 activation, was our storms last year with the tornado and the straight line winds. We had a representative of FPL in our EOC that we stood up, taking those phone calls, tracking those down power lines, and all of that as they were called in by units out on the road, saying, hey, there's this power line down here. We had those utilities in, and when those situations develop, we'll call them up and they will show up, and they're amazing for that.
Awesome. Anything else?
Chris, if you're talking about the EOC, if you could bring a picture of a room, the EOC, with all the tables and the numbers, and everybody that has a seat at every one of those tables, it would definitely take some questions away of how something's going to be handled. We've got amateur radio right at the front. They actually have a room there. And every utility, the bases have seats at the table. I think if you guys put this on there, you can pull that up.
Let me pull that up. You're right. It's a really cool building too. I mean, like
the size of the screens, it's one of those things that, and I've got my experience in the military, 26 years where I can like that. Tell me for you to see how much the county has invested in what is in that building and what it can handle.
Coolest thing is the method to the madness, because there's no other to describe it other than chaos, right? But believe it or not, we are controlling the chaos through that EOC, the way it works. Because everything's triggered. I'm sorry?
Manage chaos?
Yes, manage chaos, absolutely. So the amount of support we bring into the county, so the county has got a plan for if we get a strike or our neighbors get a strike, where we're going to stage various cams for law enforcement, for fire, how we're going to put incoming power line crews, how we're going to do all these things. It is all pre-planned. Now the biggest thing is we have to wait for the storm to pass for those things to come in. They will stage relatively close, but then they don't actually come in until the storm is gone. And if you've ever been along the interstate post-storm, shortly thereafter, it is truck after truck after trailer of incoming resources. I promise you, if we get hit, help is coming. The biggest thing is prepare to be self-sufficient if you stay for several days at a minimum.
We didn't touch on it yet, and it was one of my questions on the sheet, was volunteers. And you're talking about all the help that people sometimes, maybe you speak to this, Ryan, is there at any point where a time where, too much help is bad? Does it get in the way with things? Or when everybody wants to give something in a disaster, here's, some diapers, how do you manage the volunteers and the help coming in?
In that photo, there's the table for that is, the first table across the way, 1, 2, 3, so third table back, that is volunteers, manning a volunteer table, and we will have a volunteer reception. All the help we can get is the best help we can get. And through that, we have a system where we qualify folks, make sure that they are qualified to use a chainsaw and aren't just going out there because they think they can. We're making sure we have, appropriate forklift drivers if they're volunteering for that. If they're volunteering for anything, we make sure they're qualified for that. And that's all done through our volunteer resource desk. We have a system all for that, and it's already planned out. As the manager said, we plan almost for everything. I'm not going to say everything because I'm sure there's going to be something that pops up that I haven't planned for yet, but emergency management, we plan for a lot of things, and sometimes jokingly we'll do it to practice. So, meteor strikes or zombie apocalypse, I'll run my folks through that. So
There's a booklet on the zombie apocalypse somewhere in your office, Ryan?
yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
With the major storm, they will a lot of times enact a community action teams, and they will notate that or inform you via the website, and it'll give locations where those community action teams will be, and so you'll have a person or persons that you can actually go to talk to if you have a situation, if you don't want to call, or you want some more information. They'll give locations to where we're at. The other thing is I've got a brochure or handout on how to stay informed during an event like that and how to stay safe after the storm that I can leave for you as well.
Yeah, there is a stack over there by the hurricane guys, at least one of those.
Yeah. And that is how we restore power, and it's basically in the order that I went over.
Thank you. I'm glad you asked to have the EOC brought up. I know a lot of school groups take tours and other groups like that, but in the day and the age where everything's remote and everybody's working remotely, being there in person really does help. So it's like, hey, I got a question, I don't have to wait on somebody to respond to an email or a phone call, I couldn't get a hold of so-and-so, I just go, hey, tell me, okay, boom, and then you move on. It does make things a little bit quicker, especially when you're trying to tell folks how to recover after a storm. So
they remain there throughout the duration?
yeah, so there's 12-hour shifts, right? And so like Ryan's Pat Maddox is number 2, and so Pat Maddox will work 12 on, 12 off, and then he becomes the incident commander.
Yes.
When Pat's sleeping or doing whatever Pat does to get buff.
Lots of coffee will be involved, but it's A shift, B shift, just like everyone else is working in. And every person who's sitting in those chairs is in A shift or B shift. So these are folks out of, we'll have a finance department from Okaloosa County will be there. They're not used to working 12-hour shifts. They will be there. 12 hours, A and B. We have folks from our grants department. Every aspect of your local government is actively working to get us back on our feet. And that's what I find is amazing, and that this is just the tip of the spear at that point. There's so much more, or tip of the iceberg rather, there's so much more going on. This is just the folks getting that information and passing the information along.
Awesome. And this website, myoklahoma.com/emergency-management is, so if you click on that emergency management page, it does come up with a lot of the hurricane resources and stuff. There's usually a link to Alert Okaloosa in there. And EOC activation on the home page. I'll have a little button that takes you to all the same stuff that I'm putting out on Facebook or whatever. It's going to be out on that activation page as well. So, anything else? Good?
They were on the tabletop for a hurricane drill yet?
Not yet. When's the hurricane simulation, Ryan?
The county is running their hurricane exercise on May 29th. I have a statewide exercise happening May 20th. And we've already done a flood exercise, funny enough. But we did that in March with municipalities doing that. So we're always getting involved. I believe we're working with a hurricane exercise with Eglin and Brookfield as well. And that's coming up. So during this time of year, lots of exercises, lots of tabletops going on.
Thank you all very, very much for being here and taking your time. Thank you guys all for sticking around and listening. There's also very important information, and I hope you guys share it with your friends and neighbors. Thanks. Round of applause to you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys making the drive down.
Let's come down from the high country.
So who's the mayor now?
Robbie, yeah.
We're not here for.
Robbie.